While Bitcoin is recovering, alt season may have officially started. Ethereum up almost double digits in the last 24 hours, up almost 10%, peaking at around $3,400. We're seeing XRP break over the threshold of $3, a high level of resistance. And we're starting to see fellow altcoins also starting to rally. But the biggest opportunity is still yet on the table. It's still very early, and there's a select few that could have even bigger runs than what we've seen thus far with the likes of XRP and what we have seen with the likes of Ethereum. We've seen some pretty big news from institutional investments into stock-based companies that are acquiring Ethereum, acquiring Solana, some big news there. And on top of that, there is some further progress in the 3 crypto bills that were at one point voted no. There is some positive direction on those that has caused this overall rally, as exactly as I talked about on X, saying that this setback was essentially just a perfect entry opportunity. We saw that dip down to 116K. Bitcoin peaked earlier at 120,000, a perfect trade just off of just a little bit of volatility. That said, all that and more in today's video. If you're new here, my name is Alex. Bring crypto news to you every single day, so you're always up to date and in the know of everything that is happening in crypto. That said, if you enjoy content like that, consider subscribing. You enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Without further ado, let's jump in the video. So I talked about this yesterday afternoon, saying that the current impasse on the crypto regulation was a perfect entry. It drove Bitcoin price down to 116K as it found its new level of support and set up a perfect recovery. Bitcoin tapping earlier today 120,000 once again, and altcoins on a massive rally, more specifically Ethereum. So, when you take a look at opportunities like this, there are going to be short periods of correction, and you have to take advantage of those corrections because oftentimes those provide you the perfect entry opportunities if you missed one of the initial run-ups, right? If you missed out the run-up from 100K to 115K, all the way to 123K, maybe you didn't want to buy at 123K, but you see the dip opportunity at 116, that was a perfect entry. So you always have to be mindful. You always have to be with your ear to the ground, essentially knowing what is happening. So that way there is some timing of the market in an instance like this, where you had a perfect type of correction, perfect level of support, and a perfect trade setup. But that said, the news today has been significantly more positive than what was earlier this week. The 3 U.S. crypto bills are revived after initial failure in the House vote. The biggest thing about this is that they're not gone away completely. They're going to be revoted on, and it even barely passed at that point, 215 to 211, with 5 representatives not voting at all. But the biggest thing is there's no agreement on the resolution itself. Reports suggest lawmakers were debating on how to move forward, and the vote remained open. So the biggest thing is how and what changes are going to be made to make it where at the next time that these get presented, that they get voted on. So there is a path forward. The problem is making sure that the next time the opportunity presents itself to vote again, that it actually gets passed. If it doesn't get passed for the second time, then there is going to be some more cause to worry. I think the biggest thing is making the changes that caused the 13 House representatives to vote no, and making those changes to the point where they're going to vote yes, because I don't think you're going to have any Democrats who are going to change their stance on this because predominantly it impacts Trump and Trump's conflict of interest in their perspective. So this is going to be having to be one of those things that is going to be pushed fully and is going to have to be pushed by the Republicans specifically, which obviously is going to be a big deal for crypto in general. So Republican, Democrat, whatever your stance may be, for this crypto, if you're take politics out of it, if you want a good positive crypto perspective, you're going to need the Republicans to be on board in order to get this passed. Now, one of the other things that happened also within the government is one of the speculations that the United States, in fact, has 90% less Bitcoin than people believed that they actually had. So U.S. Marshals revealed that the government now only has less than $29,000 29,000 Bitcoins worth 3.4 billion instead of an estimated 200,000 Bitcoins. Now, this news broke earlier this afternoon. It was also pushed by other individuals who are talking about this, saying, hey, this is not a great sign. What is actually going on? And according to Arkham, from what we can tell, they still have that Bitcoin. That Bitcoin has not moved. The United States still has 198,000 Bitcoins, more specifically to the value of around just shy of $24 billion. So from the analysis and the analytics and the metrics, it looks like none of it has moved, none of it has changed. So this may have been, there's more to this that I think is going to come out over the next couple of days, but I don't think this is something to freak out about. Some people are absolutely freaking out about it, but I think more or less people don't understand the full picture, and I don't think this provides even a full scope of everything that could be potentially within the documents as it's being referenced. Now, outside of that, that was maybe the one minor setback when it comes to Bitcoin. But the biggest thing to take a look at when it comes to Bitcoin's price is the upside potential, right? When you take a look at the rainbow chart, this is a chart that has been utilized for a long time and overall has been pretty decent, has had pretty decent accuracy. When we take a look at the market tops back here in 2021, when we saw the market top back here in 2017, early 2018, when you get kind of into the dark orange, that's when you start to see maybe that's the time to take some profits. And according to this chart, depending on how far out you go, we're not going to get into that until we're over $200,000 Bitcoin, which I think is kind of insane to think about. But it's going to be interesting to see how this chart plays out now that we're kind of in a different era. Because even in 2021, we never hit this euphoric red mark area, this bubble area. We just went to the kind of middle orange before we started our correction in a bear market. So it's going to be interesting to see how this cycle plays out. Are we going to get to the orange? That means a $200,000 Bitcoin, which would be absolutely insane. And one of the big things that could be a leader behind this is retail. I've talked about this in prior videos. Retail is not here the way it was in 2021. And one of the reasons for that is the fact that you had COVID back in 2020. A lot of retail, if you will, was online because everyone was at home. So a lot more people exposed to the internet and everything that was happening in crypto. People are a lot busier now. But we are starting to see slight adjustments. We're starting to see certain metrics that are pointing to the fact that maybe, just maybe, the fact that retail is coming back in. And we're now going to see kind of an additional push from the retail side to get Bitcoin to those euphoric highs, potentially upwards of 200,000. Now, when it comes to euphoric numbers, that has been Ethereum all week long. Ethereum really has been performing quite well in just the last couple of weeks in general, but we're starting to see some crazy moves in Ethereum. And I want to caution you, at the same time, get you excited about the potential for Ethereum to go back up to all-time highs. I think there is a possibility, but I think it can go even further if one thing specifically happens, and that happening is contingent on stablecoins, and we'll talk about what that could look like. But there is a huge divergence happening between Ethereum and Bitcoin. Typically and historically, when this happens, we see altcoins running, and that is exactly what we're starting to see. We're seeing XRP, we're seeing Solana, we're seeing Link, we're seeing a lot of altcoins, Cardano, starting to rally because of this divergence of altcoins, Ethereum leading the pack. Historically, it's always done so, and now we're starting to see altcoin season again. Now, here's the thing when it comes to Ethereum. Now, there are some very bullish people. There are Ethereum maxis. You're going to see everything in between, very similar to what you would see with the likes of Bitcoin. Now, according to this one analyst, he says that Bitcoin holding the $3,000 door holding 3,000 opens the door to a 1,100% vertical rally phase. That is an 11x from here, an over $30,000 Ethereum, which I think is absolutely insane. Some fractal analysis suggests Ethereum could surge up to 18,000. which I think is also insane. Now, one thing that we will look at in just a second that could be, maybe not as crazy, is some of the things from a upside and technical analysis standpoint that could point to higher highs for Ethereum. When you look at Bitcoin is already double, or it came close to double its prior all-time high in 2021. If Ethereum gets to that point, we're looking at almost a $10,000 Ethereum with potentially even more upside. You can see from a trajectory, when you're looking at the Bitcoin to Ethereum chart, the 200 simple moving average has been broken. And this could lead to a further rally. And that's what a lot of people are talking about. Now, one of the opportunities that has probably, and what some of them in the news that's probably driven the overall growth of Ethereum and engagement in Ethereum was possibly this earlier announcement of Peter Thiel, a multi-billionaire tech startup investor, co-founder of PayPal. He wears a lot of hats. Has a 9.1% stake in the company Bitmine Emerging Technologies. We've talked about BMNR already. But the biggest thing about this, which I did find interesting, is that Bitmine reported Ethereum holdings exceeding 163,000 ETH, valued at over 500 million, which is more than double the 250 million the company raised in a private placement just 5 days prior. So it appears that, in fact, they have double the amount of Ethereum they were initially raising capital for, which is extremely bullish, maybe if you're Peter Thiel, and extremely bullish if you are an Ethereum believer. Now, as all of this bullishness has culminated, it's also had an impact on ETH's price, and obviously Ethereum shorts getting wrecked. Ethereum has extremely high levels of interest, and the amount of short interest and short positions getting liquidated is incredible, and in a really good way, especially if you're a bull. When you take a look at future upside for the likes of Ethereum, you can see different levels of resistance. This is on a daily chart that Ethereum has to break through. Right now, we saw this top here at around the $3,400 price range. I think next level resistance is going to be around $3,700, $3,800. Then we are essentially going back to $4,000 plus. Now, I think we could very easily escalate. There's going to be I think a correction around the 4,000 range. There's going to be some resistance there. And I think once we get past 4,000, and 4,000 is now a level of support, 4,800 should not be very difficult to achieve. And that obviously is going to be a next level of resistance. So I think very well we could see a chart that goes like this for Ethereum, where we see different levels of support, and then we get higher and higher. But I think it will take some time. This was a terrible drawing, but I think it could happen a lot faster because of some of the things that we're already seeing on the institutional side for the just insane amount of acquisitions for Ethereum, the amount of shorts on a blow off top, if you will, some of these crazy single candles, 2 or 3 candles all in a row, pretty fast movements. But I think the biggest thing that is going to drive Ethereum back to its all-time high and potentially even higher is if it can fix this problem with inflation. Inflation is still a huge aspect that I think is holding Ethereum back. And if Ethereum can figure this out, then the sky is the limit. Right now, the inflation has no limit. And that is the inherent problem. There's been over almost $14 billion worth of Ethereum burn since 2021's upgrade. But the problem is Ethereum still is inflationary. It is not deflationary, which I think once this pivot occurs long term, this is going to be absolutely huge. This is going to make it, to some who compare Ethereum to Bitcoin or Ethereum as the next Bitcoin, this would be one of the criterias that could be considered and could put Ethereum in a similar ballpark from a deflationary, and the idea of what happens with Bitcoin. It's a very scarce asset. There's no scarcity really right now with Ethereum because there's constant inflation. Once this inflation is dealt with and it becomes deflationary, I think that can provide it some of its Bitcoin-esque type of ideals. Now, one of the things that also Bitmine Emerging Technologies, we've talked about this, a lot more companies becoming crypto holding acquisition companies essentially. Bitmine, I think, has found a bottom around the $40 range. If Ethereum continues to rally, this is something that I think is going to go back to $100. This could go even more so to the past of $120, $130, $150 because you're seeing some major investors. Peter Thiel getting almost 10% of the company, pretty insane. I think there's going to be more to follow as well. Now, the last thing that I really want to highlight is XRP. XRP, I have been trading on and off as the expectation of this $3 level of resistance. This has been a huge level of resistance for the likes of XRP, but I think we're at a point where the $3 is going to become a level of support. Right now, we're seeing at $3.07. I think if we retest from this peak here, we go back down to $3. I think once we realize that is a new level of support, the likes of XRP is going to go back to new all-time highs. I think that is only, I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And this could be a huge winner alongside of other alts that are going to be rallying in this alt season. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Where do you think Ethereum is headed next? Do you think we're going to see all-time highs coming soon? Do you think we're going to see Ethereum over 10,000? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Enjoy content like this, consider subscribing. And until next time, guys, stay invested.